Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We are gonna speak about the latest features and enhancement in Paytest Hub, but also within PaytestLab overall. So with me today, we have Mattia Masolin. He's our head of technology, and myself, I'm David, head of sales at PaytestLab, and we go through following agenda. So we will start with software updates, followed by hardware updates. Then we look into the pipeline, and at the end, we will have some demo of new features. So the demo is actually in between. So whenever you have questions, please drop them directly into the chat. We will address them at the end of the session and follow up then with you accordingly. So Mattia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David. Hello also from my side. My name is Mattia, as David already mentioned, and I will be presenting you today the software updates of the new Paytest Hub, which is being released tomorrow between 3 and 5 in the afternoon European time, so Central European time. But if we go to the content of the release, let me start with the most important one, or at least the one that is the biggest one in the next release, and this is the single sign-on. So what we did is we created a new identity application manager, which sits on top of Paytest Hub, and it allows people to log in and log out some more seamlessly. This means that we've enabled the sign-in with Microsoft Work or School account. We will also allow for the bigger clients to have their own identity provider as long as they are following the OpenID standard or the SAML 2.0. We will also enable, after this is released, the multi-factor authentication, which means that there will need to be one-time password at the end, or maybe entering the magic number that comes from an application or some other way of authenticating yourself. And one of the main things that we will do is we will use this login for all our applications. At the moment, this is the Zoho knowledge base as well as the Paytest Hub. But in a while, as our application stack grows, also they will also be integrating out of the box our sign-in application manager. For this, I would show you how will this look like after tomorrow's update. So what will happen is you will be greeted to such a page where you will have to enter your tenant name. This is something that happens the first time. Afterwards, your browser will, of course, know where do you belong and will not ask you for something like this anymore. So I pre-prepared a demo tenant name. And if I submit, I come into the login page. I can change the organization if I did something wrong, and otherwise I can press login. And now we came to a new address, which is the authorization from the Paytest Hub, and this one asks me for either the email and password, which stayed the same as the one you had before using Paytest Hub, or I can also log in with Microsoft. That's up to you what they want to use. For me, I will use Microsoft today. Once I've logged in, as you see, I'm in. I come normally into the Paytest Hub where I can use it as I did before. I really hope that this feature will benefit people that are interested in, but it's mostly made so we can enhance the security. We can track the logins a little bit better, see what is wrong through our logging and monitoring. And the third thing is we can onboard bigger clients much faster and with bigger ease. So this is the single sign-on, which, as I mentioned before, it will happen tomorrow. In case you would have some troubles logging in, don't hesitate to let us know. So if I continue to our Paytest Hub updates afterwards, Paytest Hub itself got quite a big, let's say, feature update, but I think one of the most important at the moment are the routines. So routine is repeated tasks that do not add or do not bring additional value to the test case, yet they still need to be executed. Imagine if you have a terminal that goes to sleep after 60 minutes, apologies, after 60 seconds. How do you manage this? Maybe you have to write before every test case, wake up, and then you do something, or you have some other mechanism to wake up. We thought this would be a very good um, it would be a very good enhancement if we would make a step up routine for this, where you could write a normal test case as if terminal would already be awakened, but you can add on top the routine saying every time before you start a test case, please wake up the terminal. The same is with the step down. Sometimes when the test case is done, you want to maybe bring the terminal to sleep. Maybe you want to make sure that the terminal log gets emptied, so you want to make the reconciliation no matter what, or you want to do something else. So in that case, you can create a step down routine. And the third one, and that one is really important, is the recovery. Sometimes you're having a test case fails somewhere in the middle, and instead of coming then back to the idle, it just leaves the terminal in a state where it is. So the next test case that comes afterwards uh, cannot be even started because the terminal is still in the wrong state. And that's why we also created the recovery routines. All of these routines are then used on the agents and environment, so you have to define them for agent and environment. Let me quickly show you what I mean. If I present you first our environment today, we have the webinar environment. I did the login already before, if you probably remembered. So we have the agent. Under the environments, I have a castles terminal and the DX terminal. I will also quickly switch the camera so I can show you how does this look like live. So as you see here on my camera, I've put now in front of the robot. We have two terminals with us. One of the terminals is a Castles Saturn 1000, and the other one is Ingenico 1000. As you see, one of the terminals is asleep, which is intended, and the other one is awake. So let me quickly show you how does this look like. So if we go to the DX 8000, which I will present you at the beginning, and we check its stream, we see that it's black. So if I would want to start a test case before, I might want to click to wake it up. But what we did now is we made a new section under the environments where you can actually check or create and check the routines. I will open the step up routine that we have here. Allow me a second. So routine is very similar to a test case. It has a name, it has a description, but on top it has a routine type. So I can select step up, step down, recovery. I can also say I want it enabled or disabled, and then I write a command just as I would do it in a test case. After I have this, I can press save, and I have it ready for afterwards. So I've created a test case for this terminal, which is called Purchase an Ingenico, and let us quickly run it. Now, when we run the test case, we can select that the routine should not be executed. Normally and per default, it's on, but in this case, I turned it on, turned it off intentionally. So when I run it, and if we maybe check the stream, you see that the terminal is still as fast asleep and actually nothing is happening. If you see on the image below, you will see that actually the robot is already pressing some buttons, but none of the things are really happening. So the test case will fail at latest here, where it will start to search for the text pin, which will never appear. So the test case fails. Let's maybe retry this now, and I will retry it in a way that I will execute the routine at the beginning. So if I rerun this and I go into the stream, you see now that all of a sudden the terminal is turned on, which the routine took care of, and then I can let the test case continue, and potentially also succeed if everything was written correctly and happened. So as you see, maybe there on the stream, the robot is entering the pin. We are waiting for the approval sign. And if everything is approved, we can finish our test case and everything is good. Yes, so let me show you another routine, which I also like a lot. And this routine is called the recovery routine. So for this, I created a test set. One is with a test case that will fail and must fail for the presentation purposes. And the second one is the test case that you've seen already. So again, I will run without the executed routines so we can see what happens. The first test case is very similar to the test case before. Among other stuff, it wants to enter the pin, but the card we are selecting will not require any pin. So the test case will fail. So as you see, we came to the purchase. Test case expects now the word pin, which never happens. So the test case fails even though transaction was approved. But what happens now is that the transaction or the next test case will just start. And as we didn't clean it up before, anything can happen. So what we want to do is we want to prevent situations like this, and we can prevent this by using the routines. So when you have the routines, you can then, so a normal user otherwise would have to go now back and prepare everything so it's back on the idle. If we do this with a routine, then everything is working. So let me quickly restart the same test case as before, or test set as before, but this time with routines turned on. So when I have the routine turned on, let's quickly check the stream. We have again the first test case, which is supposed to fail. So the test case now fails, but the routine brings now the terminal back to idle, as you saw, and now it's ready immediately to start the next test case. So when the next test case really starts, it starts fresh and ready to really be executed in a way as it should be. So this is something that everybody that are using PaytestLab are receiving tomorrow. In case there is any questions, feel free to ask them at the end of the webinar, or just contact me or David, and we would be more than happy to help you out. So as you see now, the first test case was failed due to a reason, and the second one was now successful. And this was with the help of the routine. Okay, allow me to proceed to the next topic of the tomorrow's release, and these are the reports of the test runs. So reports, as you know, once you run a test case or a test set, you want to issue a report, or you might want to issue a report in the PDF and archive it somewhere for the future. As of till now, we only had a standard report. The standard report was something that explained what kind of steps were done, what was the status of the step, and maybe how many times it was repeated. We've split this a little bit now. We did 3 different report types. So we have a summary report, which shows just basic data. When was the test set run? How many test cases and which ones, with no details, and what was their status, and that's it. Then we have a standard report, which is as it was now. And the last one, very important, is the detailed, which also contains the produced artifacts, among other things. So allow me to quickly go and have a look. I just ran a test run before. I don't want to run it again because of the time constraints. but you see it was run at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a test set of 5 purchase or 4 purchase transactions and 3 credit transaction. Each of the test case created an artifact. Artifact is something that can be created during the test case. In our case, the artifacts were the images of the pin screen, the image of screen when transaction is done, and the idle screen at the end. Beside that, we also have the receipts, the cardholder and the merchant receipts that are also fetched during the transaction. So we have a purchase with the cardholder receipt and purchase with merchant receipt. If we go to the credit transaction, the test case is fairly similar with a few differences. So if we check quickly, the pin screen is not a pin screen anymore, but it's a confirmation screen. Instead of transaction OK is written Gutschrift OK. And last but not least, there is a welcome present card idle screen, which is always the same. And very similar with the receipts as well. We have a credit receipt, a card holder, and of course also a merchant. This is a normal test run as it looked like already before, nothing new here, but what is new is the reports that we have here on top. Before we had just one report that could be issued, now we have 3 different ones. So if I click on the summary report and I go through, you see I have a very short report, PDF of 4 pages, saying first what kind of document version it is, who issued it, the file name that was created and associated with it. Of course, there's the table of contents and the summary. When was it run? How long did it run? How many test cases? What's the result? And which test cases with each individual result of it. If we go back and maybe we want to have a little bit more, we can have also standard report, which most of you saw already, so I will not download it, and I will jump directly to the detailed report. As you see, the detailed report has 25 pages. It's a little bit bigger, but it starts the same. It starts with the first page saying some general information, table of contents, and of course there's a summary page, which we had already before, written in the same manner. Afterwards, we start to see some changes. So we have every individual test case described what kind of variables were there used, what kind of steps were executed, what was their status. And of course, there's images of what this test step or test case produced, as well as the receipt. So there's the cardholder receipt and the merchant receipt. They come in the same way as they come in. So that's why the cardholder in this case is the first one. This is how the PaytestLab received it and sent it on. It could be depending on the implementation, also in different ways. And afterwards, we have a credit transaction. Again, the same with all the steps, images, and the receipts. And if we go all the way down, you see for every individual transaction that was done, you should see something like this. And all the way at the end, there should be an approval page, which is here. So if somebody wants to state and sign that they read and they agree with the report, they can sign it, and it's ready for archiving purposes. Such a detailed report is then very important, especially for future purposes. Let's say a bug appears somewhere in the future. You want to go back and check the test case that was done, which goes into the same direction. Did the invoice really or the receipt really have the numbers that you were expecting or not? Did the receipt really look like, or the image really look like the way you were expecting it to be? And like this, you can really check for the back in time, how did it really look like during the test? And then, of course, eliminate some cause of the issues, of course, with this. What is also important is if there is a close collaboration between testers and developers, sometimes it's good to give the PDF report so they can see and understand where something like this happened. And based on this, they can start and correct the issues that they could have. So that's the report. Allow me to continue. We also have the diagnostics. Diagnostics is something that was already in, but it's getting enhanced and improved. So we will have a few new features. Unfortunately, this feature will not be released tomorrow, but only in the next release due to some issues. But I still decided to explain you how will this look like. So maybe you saw already before when I was showing the test run, you also have a line saying what's happening with the terminal. So we can check for every test case what the battery level was, what the memory was used, and what the CPU usage is. This is already now, and it's nothing new. The problem at the moment is that you can see for every test case individually what is happening, which is great, but the tendency is usually that diagnostics change through a longer period. So if you would maybe have 40, 50, 60, 100 test cases and run them in a test case, you could really see the trend of the memory, trend of the CPU. Is it growing? Is it falling down? Is the battery really draining really fast or something like this? And this gives you the opportunity to understand what the issue is. Is this an issue with the terminal? Is it the issue with the hardware? Is there some software issue, memory leaks, or something like this, which you can report early? This feature will also include in the detailed report on one of the pages will also be the plotted graph where the numbers will be presented as well. So the ones that will have ADB and this enabled can really track what's happening and maybe even compare the reports from previous month and the next month. Does this look something similar, or are there some bigger discrepancies? So I believe that this is a great benefit for the users of PaytestHub. Hub. Allow me to continue afterwards. We also improved OCR massively. So the cameras were improved. One of the biggest improvement is that we are now trying to take the picture with the best resolution possible and not with the resolution you set. And then we just reduce the picture before we send it to the PaytestLab. As the OCR is done on the client, so on the agent side, this means that the OCR will be improved massively. But not only this, we also added the perspective function where you can basically select your field of interest, even though that camera is maybe positioned some strangely, some oblique. It doesn't really check the terminal from top. You can still collect the image and transform it so it looks like you're checking it from top. And with this, you can, of course, read some more data out of it. Let me quickly show you how does this work. So under agents, I have under my castles, I have my OCR, image. So I will go and edit the extension, and this is my field of interest. As you see, I have here a terminal. At the moment, I have a region turned on, so allow me to turn it off. And I can go and say, I would like to select my field of interest. And if I enable it, I will see exactly that piece and nothing else, which then really improves the quality. And because it's brought, or let's say it's using some graphical algorithms, which is called warping, it really extrapolates the position, and it helps you bring, or it makes the feeling like the camera is exactly above the terminal screen. And like this, you do not have to worry anymore where exactly you position the camera. And not only this, it also helps you position the camera better, even though there's maybe a finger that is going up above your way. By the way, this feature is also greatly used on the level 3 tests. So this was the initial motivation to do it, but then we realized it's a very good feature, and we really wanted to enable it. So this is how it looks like. Once you do it, you can also adjust the aspect ratio. So depending on it, we can squeeze it or maybe widen it in case the text is some squeezed or too wide. Yes, so I would be happy to hear some feedback from the users on how does this work for you, and it would be really great to hear also a little bit from you about this. If we continue, we also have some level 3 player updates. So with level 3 player, that's just a cosmetic update. In this case, we changed the UI to bring it some more into the way the UI is shown also on the agent side. So the ones that are using the level 3, you will see it starts to get some more convenient. Good. One more thing about the Paytest API, the ones that are not buying the Paytest Hub as a package, but just want our hardware and use the Paytest API to control our hardware. The new thing that we prepared for you, it's also a little while ago, but still I wanted to emphasize this. We've created a light version of Paytest Hub, so you still have the way to control or use the UI to control our hardware. So you're able to set up the OCR, set up the robot, the multiplexer, and everything else. But then you still use your API and our API and your test system to really test your terminals. So this looks basically like this. If I go and 1 second. So if I go and I switch tenant, I prepared a basic tenant. So let me log in. I will use the Microsoft again. But due to the multi-factor authentication, I now need also to present my number. So once I've logged in, I come here. It looks like a normal Paytest Hub. The only difference is that all the features that are outside of the agents are disabled. So if you go to the library or something else, everything is disabled and it won't allow you to do anything with it, but you're still able to download the agent and you're still able to control everything with it. And with this, I hope that you can then set up your system faster and easier, and regardless how do you use it via API or then afterwards also with the Paytest Hub. In case you did not receive the basic tenant, please contact David. I'm sure he can help you out with this. Good. These are the main features that are coming to the Paytest Hub. There were a lot of small features, especially the improvement of the usability, where we can make sure that the test case is run on the right agent. So if it's wrongly set up, it won't even let you run. There are some UI changes and so on. So there was a lot of improvements. One of the biggest improvement is also that Paytest Hub will run some faster because we adapted the database and we revised the data that we are saving. So we are saving now less data, which means less round trips and smaller documents, which helps us improve the speed and performance of the Paytest Hub. According to our test, should be around 20 to 30%. Now let me continue with the hardware updates. I would like to start with the big announcement, which is our Paytest Core. We are launching Paytest Core in the beginning of January. This is a hardware solution that creates an internal network, and all of our hardware can be connected to it, which means that we can provide your Paytest Core, which is assembled out of a router, network switch, and of course a PC, as well as a power supply. So we are able to always connect to the computer and check your devices. We are able to even reboot or power cycle the devices through the power supply, because we can turn off and on power supply, and it allows us to come to places where the risk is maximized. So if we sell our hardware in a shop that is PCI compliant, it's very difficult to connect all of our hardware onto it. So we can present the PayTest Hub, which plugs in onto the guest network and creates a predictable environment within. So all the robots are already pre-prepared and pre-configured. This is a custom process on the production side already, and the user can be much faster than online, and of course completely separated from the secure network, so there's no security issues on this side. As I mentioned on the Q1, and if you have more questions, feel free to contact David. I'm sure he can help you out with all the questions that you might have. One of the other things, we released a new firmware for the robot T1. I'm talking about the newer robots. They will receive a performance boost, work a little bit faster, around 10%. And they also support now hard and soft touch. So let me quickly elaborate about the hard and soft touch. We have two different terminals. It can be a traditional terminal with pin pad, and there we have to press a little bit harder than on a touch screen. So on the touch screen, we basically want to just touch and go back up, because that's enough. We can now differentiate based on the terminal type, should this be a soft touch or a hard touch, and our hardware now also supports it. Robot T1s are getting it first, and very soon also the robots T4 will receive it. So you will hear in one of the next webinars or newsletters about this. Good. So we are with the hardware through. Let's talk quickly about the pipeline and what awaits us in the next months. One of the things that awaits us is the PayTest Max network ability. So we have the card multiplexer that can host multiple cards. So far, these cards were connected to two different probes, and only one card could be used at the same time. This could be contact, this could be contactless, but it was always connected to one terminal. What we are changing here is all of a sudden, if in combination with our PayTest probes, so the new probes, you will be able to use multiple cards at the same time. So you will need one multiplexer, and you could have like two robots or a robot T4, or even more than one robot T4. You will just select the card that you want to use, and the card will be transmitted over the network to the correct probe. Of course, we have to do there some queuing and everything around it, so there's no collisions. But other than that, this will really enable and save time to our clients, and they won't need to buy so many multiplexers anymore, because one multiplexer will be enough for, let's say, 3, 4, or 5 environments, which will of course improve the selling cycle, and of course also the testing cycle. But this will also enable that the users will need less and smaller card sets, or smaller maybe not, but less card sets to do the automated testing. So it will be a win overall, and I'm really looking forward to this feature. This should come somewhere in the Q1. We are working on it, and you will hear somewhere in the future once this is released. Another thing I want to announce is the PayTest TCR. So PayTest TCR is, we are widening our spectrum of testing. So far we were focusing on the terminal and the terminal itself. Now we are widening our test scope also on the cash register. So we teamed up with Diversium, and we want to fully enable the ECR testing. They had already a solution which we are now tailoring together to make it compatible with PayTest Hub, but it will base on 3 different pillars. So there's the UI automation software. in case a cash register allows users to install an additional software on the cash register, we will use this and just control with the UI automation directly the cash register in order to start and test the sale process. If this will not be possible, which is often the case, then we will continue with the KVM integration. KVM stands for keyboard video mouse. It's a hardware that can be plugged into the monitor of the cash register or into the mouse and keyboard port. And on the other side, it works as a computer. So you can then connect to it and control the keyboard mouse from a remote place. And of course, you also get the stream of the image. This is a second pillar, which I expect to be most common use case. And last but not least, if both of these systems are not working for some reasons, we will also have the external control with the camera. So there will be a camera watching the screens. There will be special hardware which will act like mouse and keyboard, and we will be able to press the keyboard, move the mouse, press the mouse, or also what could also be the case is maybe a cash register could even go into the robot, so robot could press some buttons in case that would be the best case scenario. So we are really looking forward to this PayTest TCR. The first preview should be done somewhere in the Q1, but the full solution, everything ready, should be done in the middle of the Q2. So middle to the end of Q2, depending on how well the integration goes. And then there is a few small things, or let's say stuff that are worth mentioning, which we are also working on. Among others, there's the device manager. We want to improve the supervision of the PaytestLab hardware. We want to make sure that the hardware is attached and alive and in the same network. We want to be able to perform firmware updates. We want to retrieve the hardware health. So is the robot really moving? Is the port being selected on the multiplexer and stuff like this? And we want to retrieve the statistics. So robots, for example, already now are counting the key presses. There's also other things that are being monitored, but we are not sending them anywhere. Afterwards, we can get some more the idea where the users are, what are they doing, and how are they doing, so we can then help them a little bit better with setting up, or in case they have an issue, to figure out what their biggest problem is. Other things, PayTest card. Once we have the PayTest Max network ability done, we will also make the digital cards, so you won't even need the multiplexer. These digital cards will have the option also to be adapted. So if you will want things like different language, different country code, maybe change the PAN a little bit so it does not withstand the LAN check or something else. If something has to be changed, you will be able to change it by yourself. And once you've changed it, it will be sent to our PayTest probe and directly to the terminal. This will help you out when you will be testing some edge case scenarios on the cards that you don't even know, but you know that they exist. So it will be a great feature for you. What we're also gonna work on is the manually running the tests. So right now, when you have to write a test case, you have to think about the scenario and then you have to write it down. So enter the amount, select the card, start the transaction, insert the card, enter PIN, wait for the transaction to be approved, as an example. We want to add to this also the way that you can control over all of our hardware from remote. So you can check with the camera or with the ADB what the state is. You can tell to the robot, go there and press, or you insert the card. You can say to another extension, please start the transaction. To the multiplexer, we can say select the card. And based on this, we can, from remote, control the terminal, perform a transaction. But not only this transaction can be recorded, and out of this, a test case can then be created, will be created. So you can once run it manually and never again afterwards. It will always be the automated way to run it. Really looking forward to this feature. It will be somewhere mid-year next year. And last but not least, level 3 player improvements. There's a lot of level 3 player improvements coming up. So there's more AI coming for determining the state, for understanding what the requirements are that we have to send back. So what is written on the receipt, what is written on the display, all the more possible things that we have to verify right now will be now enhanced through AI. So stay tuned, and I'm sure it will be a great tool for you to use. So what feature would you like to see next? So I would be happy to get some questions, and yes, let's see how does this go.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Mattia. So you can submit questions about features which you would like to have in our pipeline, either as well in the Q&A section or by email to me and Mattia. And then we will go into the questions and answers, Mattia. So let's see if you want to come
Let
back
me
on
switch the
camera.
camera.
Yeah, then we see you again. Here we go. Let's start with this one. So does single sign on work with my other accounts like Google?
It can work. At the moment, we enabled just Microsoft, but based on the users or the client's profile, we could also enable the Google or any other OpenID or SAML accounts. So yes, that's more than possible to do. We will see through the future if this is something that we will enable or not, but I expect it to be yes.
Very good. And do you want to stop sharing the screen? Then we are again in the focus.
Of course.
That's great. So we got a couple of questions about the routines. So when somebody creates a routine, can you configure them so only the pre-test routine is executed and not the recovery test in case you want to start debugging right after the test case fails?
Yes, this is possible. So I was before showing how you write the routine. There was also a checkbox which is called enabled. So you could write a routine, make it ready, but then you can disable it as you write it, so it won't be used then for executing the test case. On the other hand, you have the other one, let's say the step up routine, which you then do want to enable, and like this, one will be enabled and the other one disabled.
Then we have one which we have addressed in a previous webinar. Is there a way to validate the receipt, for example, to check that the AID ends with 31010 or similar?
Yes, so we have our validator, which can receive the payload. If we get the payload of the receipt, then the receipt can also be validated, meaning that we could ask if there's an ID and if there is a string, we can even use something like the regex to say the ID and the number were together. So yes, this is possible.
Perfect. For anyone who hasn't seen that, we covered that topic as well in the webinar, how to write a test case. So go to our YouTube channel and rewatch it there. It's a very interesting webinar. Then a few questions about PaytestCore, Mattia. How are updates to the PaytestCore hardware and software delivered? Do I need to manually install them?
Thanks for the question. No, you don't need to manually install them. So as I mentioned before, we have the control and access to the PayTest core. So we are actually making sure that the software and hardware is fully patched and ready for you. So you can always rely that the newest version of the agent is there and the newest version also of the Windows or of the operating system is installed. So nothing can happen. Of course, the same goes also for the router or the firewall and everything else. So we will make sure that everything is patched correctly and at promptly when something happens.
Okay. So we have two more questions which we have to answer. If anyone has more questions, drop them into the chat right now and we're going to answer them on the spot. Otherwise, you can always reach out to us later as well. It's also about PaytestScore. How long does it take to set up PaytestScore hardware and get started with testing?
To set up the PaytestScore, that's a custom process. We will prepare everything already during the production. So when you receive your PaytestScore, you will also have the manual where it will say, please install that cable there or the other cable there. So you have to set up the robot. The robot you can plug into the PaytestScore, and the PaytestScore will find it already. Also, the agent will be already prepared for you, so you will not need to enter all the IP addresses or the MAC addresses of the devices, but they will be already there prepared for you in advance. And in case you need some help with setting up or help, of course, we can also access that and change.
Okay. So there are two questions. There's one more coming in right now, which goes into the other one we have. So it's the KVM hardware part of PaytestScore, and then as well, what's included in the PaytestScore bundle. Could you explain that again a bit in detail, what we offer there?
Yes, so the PaytestScore bundle has a firewall, a set of switches, one or even more depending on the set that you are buying, and there is a PC which we are running as well as the power supply. KVM is not a part of the PaytestScore. However, we have foreseen a spot so the KVM can be installed in case you would use the Paytest DCR in the future. So even if you buy today a PaytestScore and we would just send you the KVM, which you can install there and have everything at the same place, or if you would buy Paytest DCR together with the PaytestScore, which will anyway be the case, then the KVM will be inside the PaytestScore ready for you.
Perfect. And then everything goes nicely into a rack, so you can install everything
Exactly.
neatly and have good cable management. Huh?
Yes, so the PaytestScore is designed in a way that it can also be fit into the rack. So you can have it standing on the table desk, or you can put it to the rack. However, rack has to be close enough, so it works also with our hardware.
Good, thanks for that. So there's no more questions in the chat. Then we would wrap it up right now here. At that point, I thanks everyone for joining in. It was a great session, Mattia, and we will see you again next year for our webinars. Have a good day.
Thank you and for having me, and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.